you just got cast as Supergirl.
I don't think so.
Was it not 20?
I was 18.
18.
Oh, wow.
How did you feel about taking this title character and taking on this whole movie at 18?
I mean, it was so exciting. I was 19 by the time we were done shooting, but it was just so exciting to make this film, to be cast, to get a part at a performing arts high school where, you know, getting acting work was all of our dream. It was the Fame High School, so we weren't allowed to work really while we were there, so this was the big experiment, get a job. And it was really exciting. I mean, all I had was just looking forward, excitement.
Did you know anything about Supergirl before you got
Nothing.
Wow.
Zip.
So,
I don't even know how popular was that comic then. I mean, I don't know that it was still really big in the...
More
It's
now.
not in the Manhattan.
what do you think of that original kind of screen test off costume they gave you with the headband and the perm?
I know, really wonky. But they were just saying at the other table that she was that way in the 80s.
Well, they did that because the movie studio told them, hey, make her that way in the comics, so they did. And then the movie said, oh, never mind, we're doing this. But then they stayed that way.
What? Oh, look, you have it. Fantastic. So that was done before the movie.
Yes. It was done before the movie, but the movie asked them to do that.
Oh,
To tie in, and then they no, we're not doing that anymore, but
Crazy.
you have fun.
That's crazy. Good ink, nice ink.
And you've raised two different versions of Supergirl because on, the live action show, you're doing that, but then also in DC Superhero Girls, you're Martha Kent and you're raising
How
that
many
Supergirl.
more mothers can I play?
I know, you're your own mother. How many people can say that across multiple continuities too?
It's true. Am I my own mother? I am. I am. And I'm Clark's mother on Smallville. Clark Kent's
Yes, because you're Laura. You're your own mother and your own aunt.
like the mother. I'm gonna get some kind of special placement in the universe.
We think so. So the costume for the original Supergirl you played, what was that like? I guess was it a lot of fittings, or did they get it right the first time?
I remember they tried out a lot of different things. There were a lot of chefs in the kitchen because it wasn't just, it had with Salkins, I'm sure DC was part of it, the costume designer, But somebody at one of these Comic-Cons bought one of the original Supergirl lead, and it looked so tiny. I was like, did it shrink? I mean, my weight hasn't changed that much, but I was like, I don't think I could actually, it looks so, the only thing I can think of is that just the dry heat or something that actually that material, it must have gotten, just must have shrunk it.
So, what about flying? How was that like?
I mean, as a little girl, and even to this day, whenever I have a flying dream, I feel like I won the lottery because it's so vivid and such a beautiful experience. Have you ever had a flying dream?
All the time.
There's just nothing like it, right? So then to be actually doing it in a movie, I don't know, I had this just particular joy. I'm going to be doing that thing that I love so much when I have it.
So, over the last few years, Supergirl has become much bigger than it had been in many, many years. And so how does it feel to be known as the first?
Yeah, people have been asking that. It's sort of like, it didn't occur to me. That's the only way to describe it. It just wasn't on the radar of like, oh, I'm the first of this. I can put a feather in my cap. I did this. But what I do think is that it's curious that between 1984 and 2016, or whenever the Supergirl series came out, that there was nothing. I mean, even with all the flaws of the original screenplay, you would have thought somebody would have been like, come on, let's just take another whack at this. And they really, until Greg Berlanti was just like, let's do this. But I find that just interesting.
Was there even another woman lead superhero movie between Wonder Woman and Supergirl?
Well,
Catwoman. We had Catwoman.
We don't talk about Catwoman.
And Elektra.
Okay, I guess
We don't
there's
talk
two.
about that one either.
We don't talk about them because they were
They were bad.
not great. But
Well, yeah. But that's different still. Why is it different? It's not DC, right?
It is.
Well,
Oh, it is DC?
Well,
One is Marvel, one
One
is
is
DC.
but still, they weren't really heroes. I mean,
No.
It's not the same as a young woman. Like, think of Melissa right now, just where they're figuring out who they are and keep making these choices, moral choices or ethical choices of like putting other people before themselves. That's unusual. Like, you can't define that just as a character, even in the.
Did you give any advice to Melissa?
Somebody else was asking that. I mean, I love this girl. I think she's incredible in the part. She's so deeply talented. Very early on, we talked a little bit about some of the stuff about just being in this part. But, you know, my big thing is 1-hour TV shows work those actors way too hard for too many hours. I think there should be legislation or new laws put in, because she will solidly work 15, 16-hour days. There's just no reason when you're doing a 22 episode. And anyway, that's beside the point. My feeling is that thing of self-preservation, self-care, so that you do have something in the tank. That I would say for any young person in their 20s and 30s, just that mentality, especially in the West, especially in the United States, that vertical thinking, like you keep going, keep achieving, keep producing, keep going, and there's a, you know, I personally think there's a flaw in that mindset. And actors, we definitely you have to be, you know, you have to have a lot of inner strength to go like, I'm going to take a pass.
Do you see a part of you in the Supergirls in comics now or in the TV show? Like,
you know, I did have like a weird psychedelic experience. I had it when I saw Laura Vanderhoot.
Yes.
Is that how we say her?
Yes, I think you're right.
When I first saw her on the set of Smallville, like I remember looking at the back of her and thinking like, okay, that's what I looked like. I couldn't see her face, but I was like, that's kind of what it was like 25 years ago back then or whenever it was. And similarly, seeing the S on Melissa, that kind of, I had a little bit of this wonky, there's no way to describe it. Just, I wish I had the words. It just felt really odd. It was such a melding, all-encompassing experience. No one else had played Supergirl yet. Here I am in my 50s, seeing somebody in the thing that I was in. Just kind of surreal, I guess is the right.
Yeah. And you've done voice acting in the past. You've done Talia al Ghul for Batman
That's
animated
true.
series, and now you're doing
That's a
Martha,
good call.
Martha Kent. But
Right.
I wanted to give you like a proposition. So you know, the late Adam West, he did Return of the Cape Crusader. He did Batman versus Two-Face. What if
Yeah.
they ever position you to do Supergirl '84 animated? Would you ever
Oh,
revisit
that's
the character?
funny. Who was saying, someone else said, not quite that question. Yeah, I mean, I would, sure.
Okay.
I don't know that our voices change that much, so it would kind of be okay. However, like Idina Menzel, who's the most incredible singer on the planet, she did Frozen.
Yeah.
But I felt, because she's more my contemporary than not, like, this is a 40-something-year-old doing a young 15, like I just felt as an older person. I think if I was younger watching it, and I know that nobody cared, so I would be sensitive about that, about being a Supergirl voice in my
I think we
60s.
want you though, like, just to kind of continue the adventure,
Yeah.
to
Just
see
to
where
keep
this would
going.
go.
It's very
That'd be cool.
So, you've also contributed to the comics. You wrote a story
I
for
did.
Supergirl number 50 back
I
in
did.
2010, I think it was.
Yeah.
How does it feel that you were able to contribute to that legacy as
So
well?
fun, just so fun. Say yes, fun. There it was. Why not?
Do you have any memories of working with Peter O'Toole on the Krypton sequences? Or can
I
you?
mean, I remember when I saw the scene in the Phantom Zone finally shot, and I thought like, oh, the wind is blowing, it's this natural acting, and he was Shakespearean. He kind of had his hand, he had this whole, and I was kind of like this lame, that kind of, so I had a little bit like, oh. But I've told this story before that I had these speeches from Shakespeare memorized because of Performing Arts High School, and one was this Juliet speech that knows the Mask of Night is... The Mask of Night is against my skin. Anyway, well, it's not coming to me now. But he said to me, and I was doing it very emotionally to Romeo, you know, and he said, I want you to try it again and pretend you're holding 2 daffodils in your hands. And what that did is it grounded me and allowed this poetry to come through. So that's a very profound memory of him.
Very zen.
Yeah, but more from an acting point of view, so that the Shakespeare could come through, and you weren't distracting with your hand movements or your. And the other thing, which I just told the other table, was him saying to me this thing about, I want you to think about the word aware. And I thought, like, that's so wild, he's saying that, but here it is 35 years later, and that's a really good prompt to say to an 18-year-old, because think about it, like, what are you aware of right now? Where is your attention? Kind of had that Zen Buddhist something.
Did you have any moments with like Faye Dunaway?
Not personally. She was extremely professional, sort of ran a very tight ship. And I'm sure it's very tricky for her to have stepped into just this wild, like, Hieronymus Bosch painting. Like, what are you in? After the kinds of roles she had done before. So I think she probably was a little more buttoned up than this.
And Brenda Vaccaro?
Fantastic. So warm-hearted, very, as you can imagine, just lots of dripping warmth and humor.
Cool.
And why didn't you look for the Omega Hadron instead? You went to school instead.
Crazy.
Like your
Where are
parents.
the script writers?
I'm glad that you agree with us on that.
Yeah.
We watched the movie again last night at the hotel, and I'm like, her parents are dying any day, and you and Lucy Lane are like having French fries.
For goodness sakes. Agree.
So
I
it's
just
That'll
enjoyed
make
that
everyone
movie.
happy.
It's not necessarily the same situation, but you did an episode of Supergirl last season, mid-film, and these young actresses were stepping into parts that they had never really done. And now you're kind of on the other hand, you have these young actresses. Did you give any advice to them?
They were so strong, both those girls, and delightful, like solidly delightful. And I thought they looked amazingly
They did.
like
They
the
looked
older,
great.
like Kyler and Melissa. I don't know that I give advice, really. I mean, I've played now moms a lot, not only in the Supergirl, but The Lion Game and Gigantic and these other TV series. And the most fun for me is when they have auditions for something else, and traditionally everybody at some point is auditioning for something else. And then, because I love coaching actors, I love actors so much, so to me that's like the boon, working on a scene for their audition over there.
Yeah.
It gives me great joy.
What's it like to be here and to see how Supergirl's grown and just how the fandom of this place?
I'm sure this is wrong to say this, but I am surprised that it still has a life this many years later. I mean, it really, I've done a lot of other films that have sort of been whatever, or television shows, but I guess in this era of these superheroes, I think the timing has a lot to do with it, and that Melissa's show is doing well, but I can't imagine it's going to keep going. I think at some point it will have its rest. My version, not the whole thing. But yeah, I have like an interesting thing about, will they change the, not always keep doing these traditional beautiful women whose bodies are traditional. Like, I would really love to see someone take on in the superhero pantheon, like the women that don't look like the man's ideal version of a woman. And we haven't seen that yet. It's still, even though a lot has changed, there's a lot more humor. There really is now, in the same way I think with gay movement coming out, like the LGBTQ, with just women's body types. There are women that are coming out as bigger, that are coming out as with that not having to feel just the culture knocking them over the head of how you're physically supposed to look. And why not in a superhero or somewhere? It'd be really cool, because there's a lot of, I think it would go a long way for a lot of the women, young girls that are growing up who are still feeling isolated, still feeling they don't quite fit in.
There's a comic book actually about a superhero.
What's it called? Because I saw it.
Faith.
By
Is she
Valiant.
the?
Yeah. She's curvy.
big.
Yeah.
No, this is something else. It's a graphic novel. She lives on an island and she has
Oh,
to
really?
go get food, and she's a big woman, and it's a graphic
Oh,
novel.
look at this too.
Oh man, I'm gonna find out what it's
Yeah,
about. And
this
that's
This is
really
what we were talking about.
no, not that, but that's cool.
Yeah, Faith
All right,
is,
then I
uh,
stand corrected.
Faith is
Yeah,
amazing.
Faith is great.
Does she have a power? Or she's
Oh yeah,
just-
she's super. She has superpowers.
Oh well, then I am completely stand corrected.
Yeah.
Well, but
It's
it's
a TV series.
that's
or-
not a big.
I don't know.
not a big-
I think
But you
they're-
wanted
That's
it
not
to
on
be,
there.
wider, like,
A
No, it's
wider
gaining
more-
view.
Yeah, it's gaining
yeah,
steam.
yeah, more in more mass media and stuff, like, because in every of these new superhero movies, it is the perfect body types,
Right.
like the ones that everyone's
Gal
seen.
Gadot.
Yeah, it's and
It
he's
just
great.
would be interesting. It would be interesting.
I would like a Superman that looks like this too.
Right?
You know? I mean, why
Maybe
not?
there's a series in that,
That's
like
right.
just a fun sort of.
Have you been asked to come back for Supergirl this coming season yet?
Not yet, but I'm pretty sure they so far the tradition is like 2 or 3 episodes they bring me up and.
Yeah. You got to knock Dean Cain over for all that nasty stuff he did
Right?
the other year.
My goodness. Yeah.
But you know what it is about superheroes, though? They've really replaced what used to be the Greek gods.
Exactly. Oh, I'm sorry. Agreed. And I wrote a whole record about the Greek myths.
Yeah.
I'm a big Greek mythology person. Yes. Yeah. Interesting.
Although we brought in other things, like with Superman, he's an
But it has
alien.
that.
and-
I think people probably in 1,000 years would look back in the same way we look back at Greece, at Homer and the Odyssey, the Iliad.
Yeah,
Look at these.
absolutely.
Yeah,
They
that'd
are-
be
they are.
interesting. This is kind of making that pantheon of these.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Did you get to meet Chris while filming
I
Supergirl?
did. I did.
And
He
you're-
was so lovely and so sweet. I'm very sorry he's gone.
Oh,
We're gonna wrap it up and give
Thank
Helen
you
a break.
guys so much.
Thank
Lovely
you.
to talk to
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.